What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my co host, Jonathan Holder and Toby D. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
It's a
Jonathan, I'm gonna
Saturday,
let you
man.
head it off.
I guess I should
I'm.
start actually calling one of your names out so y'all don't run over each other. Anyway, all right. Jonathan, how are you doing, sir?
It's a Saturday.
There it is.
I'm not working today, so I'm totally down with that.
Right.
And we're getting ready to, after we get done recording this, a whole day of college football and Starfield.
There it is. There it is. Toby, how are you, sir?
And man, I echo the first part Jonathan said, not working today, not working tomorrow. So hey, I
There it
can
is.
enjoy some college football and I'm doing a new thing, balancing out my checkbook now, which I hadn't done in years.
Oh, Lord.
But that's a whole nother story, that's a whole nother story for another time. But yeah, man, I'm enjoying the day, man. I get excited now about these new segments that we're doing because
Yeah.
last week was exciting.
Right. It's something different.
Yeah,
Like we said last week, Tuesday shows are focusing squarely on our Falcons, how they did, the games that are coming up. This year we're going to try to have some more guests on throughout the year. Last week we had Aaron Freeman on. So just, Tuesday's fully focused on the home team. But you can't help but notice what goes on around the league,
yeah.
and how it might potentially affect our Falcons or just interesting storylines as a whole. So that's why we
Okay.
decided on this Saturday to take time and look at what has gone on in the league and just have some time talking about it. So our first topic um, that we're going to reach on is wrong one, wrong topic. Ha ha, bam. So it kind of goes with our Falcons and and not so. There's a couple teams that are like some surprise 2-0 that are still undefeated 2 weeks in, and then there are some teams that aren't 2-0 that are kind of kind of shocking. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Obviously, our Falcons are 2-0, and
Yeah.
for a lot of people, maybe even us included, kind of a surprise, in a sense. I know a lot of folks had us either going, potentially 1-1 or 0-2 during this stretch, but we are 2-0 and have looked pretty good doing it. So, out of the 2-0 teams, what are some of the other guys that are surprising and shocking to y'all?
I didn't think the Bucks would be 2-0. I'm
Yeah,
that is my biggest surprise. I mean, you got three teams currently in our division that are 2-0 right now. The New Orleans Saints. I'm not much of a believer in Dennis Allen, but I guess he's starting to make me become a believer because I mean, I didn't think that he would even have his team at 2-0 at this point.
right. Like I didn't have much faith or trust in either Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Like I remember having an off-season discussion with a Bucks fan, going, "Hey, dude, like at this point, we know what Mayfield is, you know, but kind of feeds into the storyline from last year with Geno Smith. You know, some of these quarterbacks are having a resurgence. I don't know if Mayfield will continue his resurgence, but um, right now he sure is playing good.
Well, like, is he going to be? Is he going to have a Geno Smith kind of year, or Is he the next Fitzmagic?
Right.
Right. If Fitzpatrick would do this same song and dance, he'd go to a new team, maybe not start initially. Maybe he came in and won the starting job, whatever. And then like his first handful of games, anywhere like from 4 to 6 games, everybody's like, is he has he turned the corner?
Right.
Like
Is
is
he
he
the
is
guy?
it
Yeah.
like whatever because he would come in and like throw like 3 4 touchdowns seemingly every game. Uh like crazy plays all over the place. And then after that 4 to 6 game window, it's like he just falls off a cliff. And then there's the
Yeah,
Fitzpatrick that
there's
we
the
know.
guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So is he going to do that, or is he going to be the Geno Smith where he comes in and looks really good? That the majority of the season, and then ends up with like a new deal,
Right.
and what have you. Uh, Either one is possible. That defense is good enough that if you're if you're yeah, at least average to above average quarterback play will win you some games.
Mhm.
So
And
they are definitely surprising.
it seems like in a way that that's at least right now what the league is going to, like average quarterback play. Like you're seeing that more and more. Like you have a handful of teams that are have your upper echelon elites or what have you, but unless you clearly have a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or whatnot, like you really don't have the choice but to try to build a whole team instead of
Yeah.
trying to have one guy elevate a team. I felt like the league had done that for or tried to do that for the past decade or so, trying to replicate the Brady's and the Mannings and the Aaron Rodgers in his prime. Now it seems like okay, the chances of us being able to find that might be slim. So let's try to build an entire team and hopefully like luck into a decent quarterback.
Now
Well,
I'll
and
say this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
well, that's a that's what you're seeing in Tampa. Like that's what you're
Right.
seeing in. So that's honestly what you're seeing in New Orleans because Derek Carr had like Dennis Allen. Still, I'm not impressed with him as a coach. I mean, he basically has that defense that he relies on. The offense still hasn't like
Lit it up.
clicked.
Yeah.
Derek Carr threw an interception over the weekend or on Monday night that I was just like, what are you like?
Yeah. What are you
I
looking
would be
at there?
scratching my I'd be scratching my head if that was Ritter or Bryce Young or any of those guys, and he threw it, and I was like, what? You're a how many year vet, dude? So like Derek Carr is not necessarily impressing me right now. I'm not saying he can't do it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, like their defense is something else right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is absolutely carrying that team. If that defense was not every bit as good as it is right now, they would not be 2-0.
Right.
Now I tell you what I have noticed from Derek Carr, this is second week in a row, just like with Desmond Ritter, he's led what essentially will become two game winning drives to at least get enough points to ultimately win both the games that they played recently. And
Yeah.
that part I have noticed. The other thing when I was looking at the 2-0 teams, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but it's right now six teams that are 2-0. Three are in the NFC East and three are of course in our division versus only two in the AFC right
Right.
now, which is kind of telling you what the talent level has been like in the AFC versus ours, which is another reason why I think guys we're going to be making the playoffs because if the NFC is looking like this, I think we got a chance, and we don't have to go out here and get another quarterback besides Desmond Ritter. And that's just my opinion about it. If the NFC is starting to kind of decline a little bit,
Right. Well, we've seen that over the past few years that the
yeah,
AFC's talent pool. The question will become is like, will the ultimate question, at least for our Falcons, is like, is Ritter talented enough to take us all the way? Which is
yeah,
still
Yeah.
remains to be seen. But
yeah,
I do think that he can get us into the playoffs for sure. Now, some of the like surprise 0-2 teams like come to mind. Obviously, the Bengals being 0-2 seems to be a little bit shocked. Now, last year or last week, the Bengals played a little bit better. They opened up with two divisional games, which is always tough to get yourself into a rhythm playing a team that is very familiar with you.
yeah.
Um, the other like surprise 0-2 teams that I was thinking of is
The Arizona Cardinals, right?
yes, yes, super surprising that the no. I'm actually surprised that the Arizona Cardinals even led against the Giants for as long as they did.
The
Um,
Chargers are my shocker.
there's now I was like, there's
Yeah.
The
another one on the
Chargers are my
AFC.
shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so
I don't I'd stay if that team doesn't figure something out, like Staley may be the first like coaching casualty
yeah,
this
yeah.
year.
I would agree. I would agree.
yeah, his defense, like, and obviously he's a defensive coach, and his defense with both Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are and Derwin James, like that's three like superstar level players,
Yeah.
and you're getting beat by Tannehill and by Miami. So
Well, no,
Yeah,
they didn't get beat by Tannehill. They got beat by that defense.
yeah,
That
yeah,
Tennessee defense. They've had a good defense there for a few years now, but like it looks real good right now.
right. So Vrabel's got him cooking.
Yeah, on the D side, but and I think in the other one that would be my most. At least I wouldn't necessarily say I would have expected them to be 2-0, but at least getting one of the two is probably the Vikings, because honestly their
right.
defense
Yeah,
hasn't played that bad.
yeah,
Their defense has played pretty good, and the offense has put up some kind of numbers.
I'll
But
tell
then
you
the
this.
problem is they just give the ball away too many times.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I tell you this. Kirk Cousins has done me well in fantasy the past 2 weeks. Uh, like no doubt. But it's funny to be put up all those kind of numbers and still end up losing the game.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yep.
all right. So on to our next topic, which you got a brief preview of a second ago, but here it is injuries are starting to mount.
Mm,
Yep.
We saw another horrific injury with Nick Chubb up there in
Oof.
Cleveland. That
man.
was
Wow,
horrible to see. And
wow.
like I hate to say it like this, like he's not one of the ones you want to see it happen to. Like you don't want to see it to
Right.
happen to nobody, right? But Nick Chubb, especially if you're here in Georgia, Nick Chubb is one of the good guys. Like
Yeah,
he
Yeah.
goes back every year and works out with his like high school, team, and he's very active in his hometown community. And like I said, he is just generally one of the good guys that you get to hear about in the NFL, and seeing him go down like that was just heartbreaking.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
and I absolutely hated to see it, but through 2 weeks, you've lost Nick Chubb, you've lost Aaron Rodgers, and
yep.
at least for a few games, you've lost Anthony Richardson, and
Mm-hmm.
which is something that we
That
had
part.
talked about during that draft cycle,
Yeah.
like how sustainable is this type of play? And now you have at least for a week or two Bryce Young out.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, durability has always been a question for Bryce Young. So this is going to be some concerns for them Carolina Panthers fans over here and a
Right,
lot of media too, because this is something we wondered how his small frame was going to be able to handle the impact of those big time players in the NFL. So we'll
right,
see. This story shall be continued.
right.
Well, and that's why like when it came time to when the draft night came out, day one of the draft, and pick one comes up and they pick Bryce Young. Like the my worst nightmare. Now he may go on and have a great career and terrorize the Falcons the rest of his time. But
Yeah.
like my greatest fear was Carolina picking CJ Stroud,
Right,
Yeah.
because he's a guy that's got some size to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who can move around
Yeah.
just the same if not better than Bryce. And but this guy, so far now it hasn't resulted in wins, but himself, he's made some rookie mistakes, but overall, like he's looked really good throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Um, and whereas Bryce sometimes has looked lost.
right.
Lost.
Um,
Yeah.
but I just feel like Bryce Young, like he's already now, is he actually out because of the injury, or is the injury being used as a cover so that
Well,
they can
that
say
that
like,
obviously that we're not going to know. Like if
Yeah.
yeah,
they're just trying to use it as maybe give him a chance to get his
take a
head back,
breather?
like yeah, get a like his head back above water. But uh, they're saying that it's an ankle injury, and that he's going to be out a week or two. And
Mm.
then you have, like I said, you have Anthony Richardson, who has given you some electric plays, but 2 weeks in a row now, Gardner Minshew's had to come in because his play style right now, he's more confident running than he is throwing. The
Right.
team is more confident running him than they are
Mhm.
throwing him. And, he's just not as durable to, I think, to keep sustaining that. And then, like, if you could say one thing about Jalen Hurts, he seems to be more durable,
Yeah.
with those QB power runs and stuff like that. But to talk about like CJ Stroud, I mean, in a loss, he threw for 384 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he's doing his part, and that's with no turnovers.
Yeah.
So, uh, and didn't he get banged up a little bit as well? Like with a shoulder, I thought he hadn't missed any time, but I know he was on the injury report. So
He might have,
it
but
might
I
have been
don't
something
remember. I
minor.
don't remember even hearing
Yeah. I
about it,
don't
Yeah.
so
remember.
it can't have been too bad.
So, with that being said, like it's some of the things that we were concerned about with these rookie QBs, are showing themselves 2 weeks into
Yeah.
the season, and
Well,
Yeah.
so
and I think you look at Richardson, specifically Richardson. Okay, if we look at Richardson, like the way he's playing or the way he has played to this point is now the way people are talking like Justin Fields. You need to go
right,
play like obviously Justin Fields for whatever reason. Now his third year is 3 years in
third,
the league,
he's
right?
he's
Yeah.
third year in.
Third year.
Okay, so he's now three. This is his third year in the league. But you see him like I watched and it was an epic, like 90-minute long QB
Oh, you talking
school.
about JT O'Sullivan?
Yeah, and I keep wanting to say JT Daniels for some reason, but yeah, JT O'Sullivan. But it was like 90 minutes long, and he just went in on the offense, like whether it was the coaching, like how he's being coached up, or whether or not he's just not getting the offense or whatever. But it looks real bad, not just from hey, your quarterback has no time, he can't do whatever. Like there was literally like on a lot of those plays, that offensive line gave him like he's just sitting back there like
Dancing and
surveying
yep.
and just not getting rid of that ball and then just running into sacks. And is that a like they're trying to be like you need to stay in the pocket? Okay. And if that's the case, now everybody's like, well, you just got to let him be himself and he's got to, run do more runs with him, do more of this and that and the other. And then you do that, then he ends up in a Anthony Richardson situation where he can't finish games because he's going out there and getting banged around all the time.
Mhm.
That's going
Well,
to take a toll. So
it's interesting to hear, and we'll use this as a segue to move into our last our last like little story, which is the Bears the dumpster, because uh all we heard all off season is that Justin Fields 1,000 yard rusher or whatever he was, like that's not sustainable. That's all we
Right.
heard. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. Can't do that. It's not sustainable. When it's not. Like we see that with what we had talked about a minute ago with Anthony Richardson. You see that with RG3 back in the day. You saw that with
Mhm.
name any other like ultra athletic,
Cam
Cam Newton.
Newton,
Yeah, I must say Cam Newton, ultra athletic QB. Like you can't just absolutely rely on the run because that's just too much pounding on you. It's the reason why they don't want to pay running backs the big money
Mhm.
because of the like damage they take and the shortened career span that they have. Right?
I mean, if Cam the one guy that has played in the NFL probably ever, okay, as a quarterback, not any other position, as a quarterback that was probably the most built to have that kind of offense sustainably run for potentially years. Even we're talking Cam Newton, like even
Yeah.
his body couldn't take the abuse after so much time. Like you got
Right.
probably more out of him
Right.
than you would have gotten out of anybody else running that offense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but eventually, like and far sooner than somebody say like a Peyton Manning or Brady or Matt Ryan or any of those guys that were good from the pocket. Like your career is likely going to be far shorter if you're that kind of quarterback.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't really matter how big, how beefy, how in shape you are. You take those kinds of hits, it's going to take a toll sooner than later.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, it's the deal why to me why Lamar Jackson was trying to either get out of Baltimore or probably sent the ownership a thank you card for moving off of Greg Roman. You
Yeah.
know, you can't survive with a QB power game as a mainstay of your offense. You can do it every now and again, But if it's a mainstay of your offense, I think you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
So this turns,
I agree.
Toby, what do you see on the surface about, like, because we get the news that breaks earlier that Aaron Williams, the DC, uh, didn't call plays last week in Tampa, like wasn't even
Mm.
with the team last week in Tampa. Then we get the deal that he resigns, and we start hearing rumors that his house gets raided by the FBI. Like, what do you like? What's your take on what in God's name is going on in Chicago right now?
It sounds crazy, man. I mean, it's almost like a movie going on over there. I think they should have been the one on Hard Knocks and not the Jets because they would have been a far better story with all these storylines coming out. And then hearing that recently about the possible FBI investigation, which was funny though when you had texted us something about Peanut Tillman about a real FBI guy, but that was just crazy too because he was a former Chicago Bear as well. I wonder if he's investigating this, but anyway, um, it's just kind of crazy what's going on over there. I'm not really liking what Justin Fields did, and I know we're going to get to it when
Yeah,
he calls out
you can
his
go ahead and get
offensive
into it if you want
coordinator.
to.
I
Yeah,
mean, dude, that's not even mature on the NFL level. Now we know NFL, man, they in that locker room, because I knew a former NFL player before, and he would tell me stuff they talk about in that NFL locker. They talk about everything. Okay, it don't matter about race, music, whatever, but it stays in the locker room. Okay, it doesn't come outside of the locker room. And when you have guys that are bringing that type of stuff, everybody's a man, everybody's grown. Okay, and you're gonna talk about and be honest with each other inside those meeting rooms and inside them locker rooms. But that stuff should never come outside of there because you are at the end of the day, you're supposed to be a family. And so for you to call out your offensive coordinator in front of the media, now I know he did put a little bit of the blame on himself and stuff like this and that, but then you talking about you're just going to ignore the playbook, sound like a Michael Vick thing. You just going to ignore the playbook and just play like you playing backyard football. That's just not how it goes in the NFL, and you can't get away with doing that anymore, in my
right.
opinion, today.
Yeah, and I hate to say it like this, and I may get lambasted in the comments, and that's fine. Um, but it almost like shows a little bit of a pattern with Fields.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't going his way in Georgia,
Yep.
and he, hightails it out of there to get playing time. That's the new norm. But the way it went down, like, wasn't like the greatest. Then he goes, shows up in Ohio State, plays well there, uh, but then gets into the league and, like, outside of his running ability, hasn't really shown any development. Now, whether you put that on the coaching staff, like he's under his second coaching staff, by no means, especially if you watch that JT O'Sullivan QB school, there's like you come away from that going, there ain't nobody that isn't at fault here, with what's going on. Like the play design is trash in a lot of situations. Um, whether the players themselves are messing up, and if they're messing up, that's direct reflection on the coaches teaching it.
Yeah.
You know, if you got backs that are leaving and when they should be staying in for protection so that these longer routes can develop, and if they're leaving, like that's bad teaching. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
squarely on the coaches. But then you like Jonathan was earlier talking about. Then you marry it with how like his mechanics look bad. As far as like chopping his feet, bouncing around and dancing back there, not taking like not taking what looks to be obviously open passes. So it's just bad all the way around in Chicago. And I started to get the feeling that this seems like we're trying to set you up so we can get you out of here kind of deal,
Maybe so.
And then that makes me wonder. We always hear and we always talk about, oh, well, that's not the coach's guy. Okay, that works until it's the quarterback that you spent a lot of capital on,
Yeah.
right? Generally speaking, when a new coach and GM come in, unless the owner says, hey, you got carte blanche to do whatever you need to do, like blank did with Fontenot and Smith here,
Hmm.
generally speaking, those guys are brought in to work with this guy that we just drafted.
Yeah.
And it really has the optics of we're trying to set this guy up for failure so that we have an excuse to go to ownership and use one of these next 2 first round picks next year to get the guy we want. And
Yeah.
that to me then speaks to the attitude, or maybe, which is kind of like uh reinforced with the press conference, but maybe it's the attitude of Fields in the building. You know, I don't know. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
There's no way to really tell,
No,
like 100%, but it looks so like, me, like if I sit there and watch it, like, yeah, like there's going to be some things that I would pick up on, but then, yeah, watching the QB school video and watching, like, hearing him talk about, not just, it's not just like, hey, he's missing a guy,
yeah, no.
he's
It's
just,
bad
but
design.
there's bad design, there's bad execution.
Yeah,
Like guys should be doing certain things that they're not doing. Um, and if they're being if they're being coached to do it that way, then that's a problem of, okay, this coach sucks.
yeah,
Now the coach may be trying to get him to do the right thing. We've haven't heard exactly the most flattering things for Claypool, as far as work ethic, as far as a guy who is in there and you know picking things up and all that other stuff. So we haven't heard all glowing things regarding Claypool, who's supposed to be your number one
right.
guy, or a close number two, to DJ Moore, and then you got DJ Moore, and like you hear like in mic'd up sessions with
Oh man, that
guys
was
like
bad, wasn't it?
like he basically like, man, they're not using you right. He's like, I know.
Like, it's like, to me, that's as about as condemning as anything else. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and like their defense is all around just atrocious.
But now,
And
I will say, like, part of this that we hear with the initial uh reporting of Justin Fields' comment of like, oh, what do we blame on the, why is this, why are things not going, he's like, maybe I'm being a little too robotic. I'm thinking, but and then somebody's like, and then he like threw the grenade in the room, and then
right,
talked about it's coaching. The initial tweet, when you read that, you're like, what, what, like, oh my god. But like when you hear his full comment, and then he later came. Now, some people may say like, oh, he came back to like backpedal on it and this and that and the other. It is what it is. But like, I feel like he comes back and he's like, hey, I just want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what I was meaning there. Please just like, you guys do a real, a much needed service for us, for the fans,
uh-huh,
but like make sure that you're getting this right. And so I don't necessarily think he was me. Now, it may have sounded that way to people in the room at the time of the initial interview. I don't think he was trying to throw anybody under the bus. I don't think, but the fact that you like, the fact that there's even the opportunity for somebody to take something that you're saying to mean that
that's
is a problem, because you know but now some people will be like, but we're always asking guys to be honest with us and be that, don't just give us the canned responses. The canned responses are good so that you don't get this kind of situation.
right. That's
Hmm.
Um,
that's the reason why I have for years now don't really necessarily listen to a lot of interviews, because you don't get anything, and you're trained not to give anything.
Right.
And
yeah,
it's, you know, and the fact that he let it slip even a little bit enough to give somebody, you know, in that situation, like, you have to be more guarded there. Now, if it was a mic'd up deal and they caught it like they did with DJ Moore, so be it, right? You're talking to somebody you're not 100% sure that you got a, high powered mic pointed at you, but being up on a podium, it's kind of like Cam Newton after the Super Bowl. You know,
yeah,
you have
Yeah.
to, that's part of the job. You have to understand where you're at, and have more, control of your
Yep.
thought process in that period of time. Whether you meant it
Yep.
that way or not, you should know now, 3 years into the league, you say something like that, and that's how it's going to, like you said, be a grenade.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Toby, what do you think? Do you think Justin Fields is going to be the QB next year for them?
No. And I'm not sure he's going to be the QB starting QB for any team. Because see, when you gotta understand about the NFL, they will blackball you in a minute, and so you have to be careful with what you're saying because you can ruin your career. Where nobody, if you're gonna, they see you starting to take stuff outside of what's happening in the meeting rooms and what's happening in them locker rooms, they are not going to want to have you involved in any part of their locker rooms. Because, like I told you, they speak honestly in these locker rooms and these meetings too. I mean, you heard if y'all listen to Jake Matthews on 92.9 The Game this week, and he talked about how they be brutally honest. They be joking, but they be brutally honest with telling the truth about certain insecurities about a player. And, even though they be joking, that's just how honest they be because that's how they are. They like a family, so
Right.
they won't hold any bars when it comes to saying what they want to say out of their mouth. You know what I'm saying? It's unfiltered. So when you're taking those unfiltered things and you're leaking them out like that because are frustrated, because even in the practices during the OTAs, you heard Justin Fields mention something about how bad they were stinking it up in the practices and stuff. So now it don't went outside of that and it went into the regular season. So he's like, hey, I'm not gonna hold back who's really causing the stink.
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and let it be known that I'm putting this on the coaches. Yeah, a little bit me, but more the coaches though.
More to coaches. Yep. No, and that's something that, like you said, that's something that will follow you, and so you have to be very calculated when you go about that. Um, so, all right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the topics there. So let's move into everybody's new favorite segment. Da, 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 our week 3 picks.
Week
Let's,
3.
so we'll
Yep.
start off with the aforementioned Bears. I think they go to Kansas City.
Well, do
Uh,
you want to you want to go over like our
oh,
just from
last
last
week.
week?
Okay, yeah, we'll start there. I was going to do that at
Go
the
over,
end, but
but just like look at the records.
yep. All right. So starting last week. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Good Lord. Let's try that one. Bam. Buddy, I'm
There
hitting
it
on
is.
all
Yeah.
morning. All right. So as of our first week, Jonathan and Toby are leading the way at 12-4. Me, I am pulling up the rear. I felt like I got a little bit more like uh boomer bust with some of my picks, and it showed with the record of 10-6. So right now, I am bringing up the rear with you two guys in the lead. So
Yep.
we start with our aforementioned Bears going to the Chiefs. As most of you would probably figure, we all picked the Chiefs. Like
Oh yeah.
after everything that we just went through, talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
the Bears,
yeah,
there's no way I was picking the Bears to beat the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs haven't really been hitting. I think like Chris Jones is back, Travis Kelsey's back. I don't see
yeah,
any way the Bears are winning this one. Agreed?
yeah.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right, Washington and Buffalo. Washington has been 2-0, which has been a nice surprise, but as you can
Yeah,
see, all three of us pretty much figured that comes to an end this weekend.
yes.
I could see this one going Washington's way because that defense is really good, and uh, you know Josh Allen has a tendency to sometimes throw some picks
That he
against good
does. That he
defenses.
does.
So I could see this one not quite coming out the way we thought, but I think like
You think Buffalo's going to sneak up?
after week one, Josh Allen is probably going to go on a tear here for a bit.
Right, he's kind of locked in a little bit. All
Yeah.
right, Titans and Browns. I hated it. I was going with the Browns. I think their defense is enough to keep Tannehill and the Titans in check, but the great defenses might balance each other out here. So I went with the Browns. That was my thinking. Guys, what was y'all's thoughts? Toby, on the Titans. Start with you.
Nick Chubb is gone. And then look, nothing against Deshaun Watson, but I still don't believe that he's all the way back yet. To being what he was with the Texans his first few years there. And
He
so
may
I'm not
never.
confident in that at all.
Yeah, I'll say this. I do think that I should send the Browns a Christmas card, thanking them for saving the Falcons for the last coming in at the last second with that Deshaun Watson stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, keep it on moving. Arizona Cardinals, Cowboys. Ain't nobody trusting the Cardinals to do
Yeah, I
nothing.
mean, not they are missing Trayvon Diggs, so
True.
maybe that defense falls apart without Trayvon. Without
I
Diggs,
highly
so
doubt that. They still have Michael
probably not.
Parsons and
Nobody
Demarcus
laughing
Lawrence.
that part.
Yeah, exactly. Dolphins and Broncos. Toby, you're on the island there with the Broncos.
Oof.
You think the uh, Russell Wilson led Broncos finally ride?
Yeah, I do, man. I believe at some point Sean Payton and Russell Wilson is going to get it together. They started putting it together against the Commanders. Now they did give up a nice little lead that they had in that game,
Right.
of course. But I think this is the week they get it on track and they take Miami down for their first loss of the season.
There you go. Jonathan, what was your thought process of going with Miami? Then I'll give you mine.
That Miami offense is going to tear that defense of Denver's up. Like I like right now they're hitting. Now could everything fall apart this week? Sure, but nothing has indicated to me that the Denver Broncos have the kind of defense that would be necessary to be able to stop the Dolphins. And the Dolphins defense has shown surprisingly well the first couple weeks.
I was actually thinking
Especially week two. Week
right.
two, they showed up really well, and I think that's probably more the norm going forward for Miami. And that offense just, ooh,
I was actually putting it on the defense. I figured the defense would be too much for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton to overcome. So that's kind of. But
yeah,
I agree with you on the offense. The offense is uh, skyrocketing right now with no signs of slowing down as of yet. All right, Eagles and Buccaneers. I think Buccaneers cease being 2-0,
Yeah.
getting their first loss. It seems like everybody else tends to agree.
mm.
No, the Eagles haven't been as dominant, but they are winning and they are still like winning pretty
I mean,
decisively.
if the Bucks come out and play really good defense and can keep that offense down, I mean, it could happen. But uh, you know, I that Eagles defense is still real good, so
Right.
we'll see.
Yep. Toby, any added thoughts on that one?
No, I just think that the Bucks finally go down. I think their miraculous 2-0 is finally going to not make it to 3-0.
There you go. All right, we're homers again. I don't think
Yeah,
that should surprise anybody. But no, I mean, the Lions have a really pretty long list of players that are either doubtful or already
Yeah.
inactive. I think that might be a little bit too much to overcome with the run game that we have, and looks like we are
they're-
getting stronger in a
yeah.
sense. Like sounds like Cordell Patterson will be back. Sounds like Jeff Okuda will make his season debut. So if that's the case, I think we might be a little bit more of a complete
Troy,
team.
Troy Anderson
Right.
cleared protocol, so he'll probably he's likely to be back this week, and he's going to be back, and with Landman showing out in week two, they're rethinking some of their defensive
Philosophies,
play
maybe.
calling or
Yeah.
what have you to try to get him on the field more too.
Yeah.
So
You might see more traditional three linebacker looks with Caden Ellis as a rusher. So anyway,
yeah,
uh, Toby, anything you want to add before we move on?
I'm not a believer in Dan Campbell. I like him as a guy,
Okay.
but I just don't believe in his coaching. And I think ultimately Detroit is going to fall apart because of that, because he's not going to be able to sustain them winning. So until he proves to me otherwise, even with all the talent that they've been gathering up over there, I just don't think he's the coach to coach that talent.
That makes sense to me. I did chuckle when they hired him. So, all right, San Francisco, New York. That was the Thursday night game. We all
yep,
picked correctly. San Francisco right now in the NFC side is looking like the most complete and best team in the NFC. So they didn't do anything any different to
Yeah.
prove otherwise on Thursday.
yep.
Jaguars, Texans. We went with Jaguars. Uh, CJ Stroud.
I mean, I could see this being the Texans' first win. I could see it because the Jaguars surprisingly haven't exactly like
Lit it up.
wowed me.
Right.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley's looked really good, and I'm hoping he continues to look good so that we can get a second round pick out of that trade.
Correct. Correct.
But
Yeah, that part.
but
That
but
part.
like the offense hasn't been super duper like I thought they would maybe take the next step, and it kind of hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't really like come to fruition yet. What
So and CJ Stroud has looked pretty good. So we'll see if he can take the next step. But I think they'll have enough this week. The Jaguars will to pull one out.
Toby?
Yeah, I believe in the Jaguars. I believe in their talent. They still got to get it together over there in with the Texans. I mean, CJ Stroud is doing what I thought he would do. He was my number one QB coming out,
Right.
and I actually thought he should have been taken first overall. Matter of fact, I thought that the Falcons had an opportunity and we sucked, and he would be available for us to get if it should have came upon that. But hey, we took our guy Sean Robinson, which was a great pick for us, and we're 2-0 because of it right now, part of it. So
Right.
yeah, I just don't feel like the Texans are exactly ready yet to take the next step to winning games just yet.
I think I'm with you. I think they're still a little bit too much devoid of talent, especially on the defensive
Yeah.
side of the ball. They got Will Anderson, but Stingley got hurt again,
Yep.
and so they just their overall talent on defense, I don't think, is enough. Jets Patriots, we are not trusting Zach Wilson at all, even though the Jets have a
Nope.
really good defense and might be
Yeah.
enough to overcome it. We are just absolutely not trusting Zach Wilson. So
Nope.
Bengals and Rams. So Toby thinks that the slide stops here for the Bengals. No longer playing a division game. Three weeks in, even though it sounds like Joe Burrow uh, re-aggravated his calf. So we'll see how that goes. But Toby, what's your thought process there on picking the Bengals?
This seems to be becoming a trend now with the Bengals starting out slow and then they finally start getting it together, starting week 3. I mean, we had similar issues with Joe Burrow in the first beginning of the season last year with injuries and stuff. And so this seems to be becoming something that Zach Taylor and his coaching staff seem to know how to manage well and finally get the team back on track. So I believe that week 3 is going to be similar to last year where they get things back going.
All I can say on the Rams side is Pukanuka, or
Puka
however you say his name.
But
Uh, what you
yeah,
got, John?
it's just like the difference between last year and this year with the Bengals is last year he was coming off of injury, but he didn't like retweak it. It wasn't an injury that he sustained in training camp. It was an injury that he was coming back from the year previous. So he was constantly working his way back. Here we've had him, he was healthy throughout the offseason, comes into training camp, tweaks it, pulls his calf muscle or what have you. Basically misses the rest of training camp. Then he comes into the season, looks real bad.
Yeah,
Um, and then in week 2, he re-injures that calf muscle. And it wasn't like oh man, I felt like a little tweak. No, I mean he was hobbling around pretty substantially.
yeah.
So like I just don't know. I don't think that this is the get right week against uh, in my opinion, surprisingly good LA Rams team.
A feisty Rams
Uh,
team.
yeah, I don't see it this week. If they do, more power to them.
Oh yeah.
But I just don't see it happening this week.
All right, Ravens and Colts. Obviously, the Lamar Jackson's back in the building. They're 2-0. They're getting more used to the offense, and with Colts without Anthony Richardson having to rely on Gardner Minshew, our money went with the Ravens. Green Bay and Saints. Me and Toby went with the Saints as much as it upset my stomach some to, to put that, but their defense has been playing well. Jonathan, what was your thought process on Green Bay? Was it just because I ain't picking the Saints?
I mean, that was definitely part of the equation. I'm not gonna lie. But like I think that you look at the Saints, their defense has been playing well. Their offense really hasn't. They've
Right.
had a couple of like big plays that have helped them in a couple of spots, but like if you look at the overall picture of that offense, it really hasn't looked all that great. And now you come into this week, I'm assuming I haven't checked to be sure, but like they're Alvin Kamara, this is his last week of his suspension, so he won't be there.
Right.
May is starting his suspension, so he won't be there for the defense. And then Williams, their backup number one running back, like he's
He's
not going to
out.
be there this
Yeah,
week.
he's out with injury.
So you're down to your third string running back against a Green Bay Packers defense that is got a pretty good front seven and a pretty good back end too
Yeah,
against an offensive line that has looked suspect at best. Um, and Derek Carr, who is not a guy that you can have a suspect offensive line with, right?
Right.
Because he's not
He's not like
a
the
runner.
mobile. Yeah. He's
He's
not super
not a
mobile.
mobile guy. He's a statue back there. So if he's not able to escape and move around and do the different things that he's probably gonna need to do, like he's he's gonna get hit quite a few times. And Derek Carr is a guy that if you start hitting him and you start rushing him, he will give the ball up.
Yep.
So you know, do I think it's a shoe in? No. The Saints do have a really good defense, and if Jordan Love, I would have liked it to have Watson back this week, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Aaron
Yeah, I
Jones
don't know.
may be back, and that'll help
I
a lot.
think Aaron Jones. Cool. All right, moving on. Seahawks, Panthers. Toby, why ain't you going with the Panthers?
the Panthers are they are another dumpster fire right now to me, and I'm not even going with an unstable team right now. They don't even know if Bryce Young probably gonna make it through the year. It's
Right.
gonna probably be the Red Rifles time most of this year. Andy Dalton that is. So I'm not even trusting in anything they're doing. And Geno Smith, guys, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Ever since I took him as my starting QB last year, okay, he has been putting up some impressive numbers for me in my fantasy league, other than the first week. But
Right.
after that second week, he lit it up, and I think he's going to do it again. Especially with them guys, man, they got hurt guys on the defensive side of the ball with the
Yeah.
Panthers too. So
No
yeah,
doubt.
I got to go
Okay.
with the Seahawks.
That makes sense to me. That's the reason why I went with them. Steelers, Raiders. We think Kenny Pickett maybe gets a little bit, you know, not get right. They
No,
won last week, but but I
I
don't
don't. I
trust.
don't. I don't think Kenny Pickett gets right. I think that defense is going to probably score 2 or 3
Nah.
touchdowns.
Yeah, I just don't trust the Raiders. I don't trust Josh McDaniels. I don't trust Jimmy
That part,
Garoppolo. Yeah, I don't. I just don't trust the Raiders. All right,
yeah,
last but not least, we got the Chargers and the Vikings. Jonathan went with the Vikings, and me and Toby went with the Chargers. I think that the Chargers, finally like right the ship, so to speak, get off that 0-2 slide. I don't know what the heck is going on with Minnesota. They looks like they should be 2-0,
yeah,
but instead
Yeah.
they're 0-2. So um, I think they take a little bit longer to figure out what's going on with them. They're having running back issues as they just traded for Cam Akers. That's kind of funny. You get rid of Dalvin Cook because you don't want to pay him. So now you trade for Cam Akers, who's another like often injured running back. So
yeah,
I don't even know what the
hmm
Vikings are doing right now offensively.
Yeah.
Anything y'all want to add on that? Chargers Vikings
Jonathan.
game?
Uh, like that I look at the Viking, and we talked about it earlier in the video. The reason why they are surprising is if you look at the overall play of both the offense and defense, they look good on both sides. Like that defense looks really good. Like the offense, the numbers look really good. The only number that doesn't look good for that offense is the turnovers.
Right.
They've given up what 7 of them, I think, in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you take away those turnovers. That's what I'm because that the Chargers defense somehow, some way, with all the talent they have, that Chargers defense is bad. I don't know why. I do not know why.
Well,
But
maybe this is the Chargers get right game. I don't know.
maybe it is, but like I don't know if uh, you know I think this is the week where they finally figure out like, hey, we're not going to give away the ball,
Yeah.
and we might win a game, and I think this is that week because that defense is bad
Cool.
for the Chargers. So.
Well, I think that's going to pretty much wrap us up for the most part for this second edition of the Look Around the League uh, podcast, I guess you can call it, or segment, episode, whatever. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us and appreciate y'all checking it out. We'll be back on Tuesday with hopefully talking about another win with the Falcons.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll be talking about the Falcons being 3-0. So make sure y'all stop by and check that out. As always, y'all can catch me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128. That's GRIMM1128. Toby?
Toby D 1991.
There it is. Jonathan?
At Jonathan M. Holder, come by, say hi.
There it is. There it is. We appreciate y'all as always. And as always, Falcons fans and football fans, rise up.
Rise up.
Rise up.